Basically, it's just a loop from a jazz CD, pretty famous one, but we'll just leave that private, even though it's like 60 years old, wouldn't matter. So we set 125 BPMs as the project tempo, and then I just grabbed a couple transients from this like little brush saxophone situation, looped it. Probably be helpful to show, but we'll just carry on from here. So now it's just about filling in the gaps. Took a bass patch that I have here built into the EXS24, and basically the principle is like call answer. Call answer is the best way for anybody really to write music, but more so like a person who's not classically trained in music, doesn't really know what to do next, how to develop a progression, find something that's calling, and then answer it, or vice versa. Depends on your perspective.
I like that. Since the last time you said that, I've been using it and keeping it in my mind, and it does help a lot with the writing process.
Yeah.
Making the groove, filling out different spaces.
Yeah, and what's cool to do too is to consider your call and consider your answer. So like, if you have maybe like an aggressive answer or an anxious call, then maybe you can relieve that feeling with your answer, So there's like a symbiotic relationship, it's giving and taking. Okay, so let's keep going here. There's really no drums in this yet, which is fine. There's really no rule or genre we're going for. It's kind of seeing where this jazz situation takes us. So
What was this, Marvin Gaye?
No, it's Johnny Coltrane. Okay. Oh, Johnny Coltrane. Recording in 96K. Been doing that lately. It's pretty good.
What does that mean?
It's the sample rate, and
so why that instead of?
It's just a higher resolution, and a lot of people will argue that it doesn't make a difference because these recordings, the samples within the sampler here and the recording from the CD that we got, this jazz loop, was recorded at 44.1, so it wouldn't make sense to go and re-record it to 96K, but I think that it does sound better. You get more clarity, and I just kind of like the sound. But when you're recording new data into the interface, it most definitely does make a difference. 96K then does really shine because it's just a higher resolution, higher quality.
What does it usually record in default?
44.1 is the default.
44.1.
That's where all like CD, mainstream data is all at 44.1. Now, most of the commercial devices, they reproduce data at 44.1, so regardless of sample rate you record at, it's always going to be bounced down to 44.1, but it's in my opinion, it's better to start with something with a nice resolution and then bounce down than to just kind of stay at that. It's subjective, but
makes sense.
You kind of just experiment with things and do what you like and leave what you don't. So maybe here we'll write some drums to go around this. Here's the Ultra Beat setup. Logic's trusty. Ooh, it's loud.
Coming in hot.
Drum sequencer. And I've created a custom kit here. It's vinyl trippity hop. It's got some nice trip hop, hip hop kind of sounds.
Alright. We got the basic Akai PK Mini 25?
Yeah, something like that. I've never counted them, but I'm sure they're all there. BPM is at 125, which is cool. It doesn't really seem like it because of what we have going on, and that's always a good way to start. Instead of just starting with your straight kick, I feel like if you start with some kind of like abstract musical concept and then create a kick, your beat is going to be that much more rich, like meaningful maybe. So yeah, I guess we just carry on with the call answer. So maybe just boom, boom. The bass stabs could maybe call for like a snare. But I'll just
Where do you want me to?
go for it. I'll hit record on this next pass here. Nice. So the groove template we used for quantizing this stuff up here was 16C. These are just the different Logic groove templates. They all like kind of deviate a little bit differently. So it's a good place to start. Although, by all means, swap out different groove templates or whatever as long as it sounds right. So 16C. And what that means is that these hits from how he recorded them, they just got moved to the nearest place where 16C corresponds. So let's hear it. And you know, it's just boom on the 2 and the 4. You got different velocities there for the hits, which is fine. Not worried about that. Not making this very structured, just kind of free form. A lot of times they'd say, oh, you want to keep the velocities consistent and high on your clap or your kicks, but who gives a shit? Word. So I'll just create that, duplicate that track and create some O drums. Nice kicks. Try that out. So on the kick, we'll keep the kick swingless. We'll keep the kick on just straight 16 note quantization. Meaning, when you press that, whatever I recorded, it'll land exactly on the grid. And as you can tell here, they're not at the beginning of the bar.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just scoot that over and these little off kicks here, I'll highlight both of these and then we'll swing them a bit. Let's see. Right here next to the quantization there's a Q swing. If you crank that, it moves the hit over to the left or the right by, and the percentage will give you a different kind of movement. It's not very consistent, but you get different things. You gotta just experiment with it. And also, the velocity on these two hits, we'll turn them down a bit so they contrast the straight kicks. So now you start to get kind of a feel for it, like a swingy kind of feel. Cool. A little bit higher than that. That's nice. Yeah. Throw that thing. So I kind of like to start with a 2-bar loop and just kind of build it. I think it's silly to just start arranging like right from the get-go, especially when there's no real set idea or plan. You know, it's like respect the grooves. Like what I like to say is like milk that loop and make it as interesting as possible to where, you know, if you're building into a 16-bar loop or an 8-bar loop, just that loop by itself is dynamic enough to keep you entertained. I'll move them over here so they start with the Logic grid.
Sound pretty groovy already.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe here like some more percussion. Simple hat.
Did you put that snare at the end?
I did.
Nice. I like that snare.
Same thing here, just go 16C, start there, see what it does. Pretty cool. Maybe I'll try and swing it a little bit. Back. That's kind of cool. Like that. It's always fun to just kind of throw a little bit of a triplet delay on these things. Maybe like a 16 triplet. Yeah. Take some of the low end out. This is Logic's tape delay. Believe it or not, it's one of the things that Logic has been famous for. Is this very powerful native tape delay. Here's the wet and dry. These are all things that are good to automate. And as you know, we create and we play with stuff, constantly keep in mind like, oh, I can automate this to create energy or create a variation in the track. And it's all about just having fun and not being, not limiting yourself, you know, not worrying about, oh, well, is this too weird or is this gonna be too you know, unconventional? Because that's just baloney.
Yeah, you can't. You gotta adjust musically what you feel instead of adjust robotically.
Exactly. So that's pretty cool. So I'll just keep duplicating and Zente. If you want to just keep adding to this sweet little jazz situation. If you click octave up and down, you might get some more sounds to your availability. And also the black keys, or in this case the red keys, will give you more sounds in the sampler.
What do you think about that snare?
It's cool. Yeah, maybe just like one of those incidentally. Yeah. Cool. Boom. I'm going to flatten that. Logic has a cool feature called take recording. Get more into that later. Let's just get these, put a little swing on them. Typically over 50. 50 is like the starting. Over 50 will give you a later hit. Pretty cool. Let's try going in here to the MIDI. Playing with this. Playing with the lengths, playing with the velocities. This one sounds pretty cool, pretty natural. Pan it a bit. And let's try throwing that same tape delay on there. The more you use the same delay or similar delay settings on different things, the more continuity and I guess like relationship you get between the parts. Of course, you always want to mind the feedback, because feedback, if you crank it, obviously, you'll get that. But even if it's just, you know, moderately high, over the course of a track, you're going to gain a lot of ambient noise, which may be really cool, but it's going to give you like a lot of noise, so just keep that in mind. Sometimes it's cool also to bounce just the wet, EQ it, and then bring it back in, EQ it, and give it its own space. There's lots of possibilities. Boost it a bit. So I'm thinking just maybe just mute these two. Give this a little velocity. Something like that. just I'm gonna turn the kick up a little bit. Maybe we'll just kind of write a chord or something. So we'll go here. Let's use the retro synth. It's pretty cool. Native Logic situation. And then what I'll also do, hit Command A, which selects everything, and then I'll copy everything over, so that way we work with an 8-bar loop as opposed to a 4. So it's, you know, whenever you're doing this, it's good to just kind of relax and really just play with the sounds, because at the end of the day, the sound you go for is going to dictate, you know, the vibe, the quality of the beat. You know, if you kind of just feel compelled to just get something down and you rush over the sourcing part, you'll get something that just sounds kind of whatever. Sometimes easier said than done. So as he plays with that, I'm going to go through here and I'm going to go through some different presets on here and see if anything is interesting. And I believe the notes that we did for that bass chord were like, was it B? Yeah. So something like this might be interesting to take that filter way down. My mind's always working like, you know, I'll find something that's, you know, the as is pretty obnoxious or annoying, but has a good strong sound to it, and then look to like filter it down, tailor it, and kind of make it fit in like a delicate way. I like that. Bing, bing, bing. Maybe just a bing, 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 bing. Like what you did, but just, you know, yeah. Like the bing, bing, like just once at the end of the 8, but then just back to the straight. Bing, 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 bing. Kind of like that sound. Yeah. Cool. Nice. Sweet. So I got that. I like the way you recorded it. Sometimes you don't even really need to quantize stuff. Just quantizing by default is kind of silly. I mean, if you record something in an interesting way that fits, sometimes it's cool to leave that humanity there. So I really like this sequence here. And then at the end here, this little turnaround is cool, but we'll save that for here. Let's try that out. Something this. So that's the possibly the 4-bar sequence. Let's see. Nice. Really cool too. Logic has something called MIDI effects. This is new to Logic 10, but basically it's just an array of different effects, ways to modify your MIDI situation. You know what you just did. So I use the chord trigger quite a bit. It basically turns what you did into a chord or a chord version of it. So let's see, there's different presets here. Let's do like minor 7. Interesting. Let's see, jazz. Not really feeling the chord trigger too much on that. Let's see if the note repeater adds any love to it. So this guy, you gotta use in moderation. Almost like for fills or variations.
It's kind of like the beat repeat.
That's exactly what it is. You gotta get creative with it. That's the thing. Maybe for like a fill. Interesting. I'm not in love with it. Let's see what else they can do here. Maybe a modulator. Pretty subtle here. Kind of gives it a little bit of a different envelope, or kind of like the characteristic of the way the note is played. That's cool. I like subtle shit. Probably not even do anything. But hey, that's cool. All right. Yeah. Something in go to waves here and throw a nice CLA 76 on here. So emulates a vintage compressor and just kind of squeeze it pretty good. Really to get it to shine. Slow down the attack just to retain some of our natural transients. That's nice. That's cool. The release on a compression is really important as far as the groove goes. The time on the release is going to dictate how long the sound sustains for, and you want to have the right sustain to carry on to be in line with your groove. You got to always be thinking about the groove. Don't ever lose focus on that when sound designing. So I'm looking for this to complete its cycle right as that snare comes in.
Is it the ting? Is that what it's?
Yeah. Yeah.
The bell sound?
So originally, without the compression, but with the drastic compression, it really pulls up like the sustained portion of the sound. And you retain more of like the initial attack if you go slower on the attack. That's typically how compressors work. So, and it also gives you quite a bit of gain. So then you compensate down here. You can compensate on the output too, but I like to leave the output pretty healthy on the plugins. Not towards clipping, but So that sounds pretty organic. Like this little synth sound sounds very much like a part of this sort of little jazz movement, we have going on here. Crank the input on the compression, give it more presence. Slower attack will give you more of the initial transient, meaning like the pretty cool. Sweet. Back off a bit on the fader. Cool thing to do on this too would be a pumper. You can do it with Logic, just a tremolo. Except here you take the phase to 0, meaning there's no stereo relationship. This is just straight attenuating on a quarter note cycle. So I can crank it. And then offset and symmetry will kind of make it groove.
I learned you could kind of do something similar with the pan.
The auto pan?
Yeah, the auto pan.
Yeah, it's the same plugin, just turn the phase all the way to 0.
Yeah, if you turn the phase. So that's not.
And then you just kind of you modify it until it fits your groove. So now it's got this like kind of like a little bit of an attitude.
Here it is.
Yeah. Little crump.
Ooh. Like that.
So now it's bopping. And now let's see, pull back a little bit on the fader here to make it more subliminal. Maybe we can do a bass. So let's see here, we'll create a track, here's a bass, duplicate this track, and then if you want to find like some kind of maybe, ooh, that's not nice. Maybe we'll go for more of a subby vibe. Let me find you a right nice patch here. Nice.
So going over.
Nice. Cool.
That.
I like it. Let's do the 16C just to start. Sweet. There it is. Very nice. Yeah, and like usually the way I am, I'll go in and like mix everything too soon and not even get my original idea down. That's what's good with working with people is that, you know, you really gotta just keep moving, and this is pretty solid here. Like, you know, as long as you can groove to it, it's solid. At the end, at the final mix down, yeah, you know, I'll go in and like make sure every hit here is hitting nice and that all balanced. You're not getting any crazy resonances or whatnot. But
you don't want to fuck up the jam, huh?
no, you don't want to fuck up the vibe, man. I'm thinking this second set here is hitting a little nicer. A little bit more funk. Very cool. Yeah, that's sweet. So I'm gonna go in here, crop that. Sweet. So like, you know, this is really unconventional and different, but it's 4/4, it's 125 BPMs. So like, you know, this is like one of those tracks that you hear and you're like, oh, that sounds cool, it sounds different. What is it? You know, you can still mix it, you can still dance to it, but it's not like your everyday house or tech house beat. And that's why it's really cool to start with something real, you know, and just start with some abstract hits, you know, like not just like, you know, kick and snare. So you know,
That's
it's
a good point.
yeah, it's a really good way to make music. I really enjoy making it like that.
I think I start with the kick and snare a little too much.
Yeah,
So I think
and it's like if I have a kick and snare that for some reason like I just hear and I'm in love with, then yeah. But that's usually not the case. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of kicks and snares that I love. It's just, you know, it's not something that's gonna like stand out usually. Memorable, I guess, is the best word. But in the moment, they're important. So maybe here I'll put a little live bass. Bong. Bong. It's a little bong. And then, you know, you kind of just vibe with it and get some ideas. I think a pad would go really cool. You know, it's a good idea too to just keep your maintenance, house cleaning going on this. So I'll name some things. Bass stab, bass, side stick, snare. I name things weird. It doesn't matter as long as you know. Kicks, like a crash, ride. Off snares. And then the sequence, I don't know. Whatever. Cool. And I'll just like to highlight everything. Or Logic, if you go to the bottom left here and you hold an option, click hold and up, it'll make everything small and out of sight, out of the way. And then we'll name also our OG loop. And the OG loop too has an auto filter on it. It's always good to play with that, and you know, you can start to get ideas for how, you know, it could sort of maybe start off like sort of like this and then slowly open up.
How's it going?
Good, man.
Yeah?
Here's Mac, my roommate, protege.
What's up? What's happening?
Have
The action machine on its way?
Happy Accident Machine, yeah. That's the name we got for him.
Happy Accident Machine.
Yeah. So that's pretty sweet. Yeah, I'll do a little bass on it, and then whatever idea comes to mind. Sometimes, like, it's not uncommon to start something with like some kind of loop, like this, and then just kind of losing it, not even using it, or just kind of chopping it up. You know, there's a lot of different things you could do. Filter the hell out of it. See, now it's just like faintly in there. Auto filter is a very powerful tool. Really allows you to just kind of, like
This is a cool auto filter.
a time-based way to kind of like bring things in and out, give movement to your loop, to your groups. And if you employ this enough, you know, all of a sudden, an 8-bar loop has enough movement and interest that, you know, there's no like crazy urge to arrange. Plug this guy in.
Did he go in there?
Let me see here. There's like a monster cord around here somewhere.
Coming into right there.
Yeah, that'll work. Are you able to reach it? Any quarter inch will really work.
Just go in the back here.
It goes into this front input here.
up in this bitch. I mean,
We up in this.
this is in the pocket.
Let's see here. Metro 1. Input on this thing. Start using this thing. Sensitivity high. Cool.
There you go.
Something like that. Loop record it. Our lead here isn't playing. Mute that. There we go. Mute on. Fuck. Let's play back the other one. Something useful in there. Cool thing about the logic is take record, meaning fuck. This huge mass is there we go. So what it does is if you have a loop and you're recording, it just keeps recording different takes. Ooh, that first one. takes. So let's say I like this first hit here, but I want to hear different parts of the other ones. So this first hit retains. You can kind of like use different parts of different takes. Something interesting in there.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So maybe I'll just use a little plucks from here, figure something out with that. So then boom, just flatten. Take the input off. Real quick way to get a pretty good bass sound with the Waves plugins. CLA bass, no secret. Plenty of people using these.
So what do you do with this?
So this guy, basically there's bass, treble, compression, sub, distortion, and pitch. Each different sort of, attribute has 3 different types: a lower, a mid, and a higher. Just different kind of registers that they hit on. For example, right? Let's put treble to cut. You can kind of hear more of a bark. Whereas, well, it's cut. Bark is bark, I guess. A little bit more of a mid-range deal, and honk is more of a lower. Kind of cool. So on the sub, on the bass, since we already have a sub bass in this, I'm gonna go either upper. That's kind of cool. I like that. There's the distortion, rip, roar, and growl. Growl's probably the most appropriate. And here's a widener. Take some of the sub off. Go for more of an aggressive compression. Just trying to have it fit in the mix. It's got a nice sound to it. Cool. Yeah, it's a good starting point for sure. We can experiment with the quantize. Let's go polyphonic. It's, I guess, the best algorithm. You could go rhythmic too, especially since we're not using that many marker points. 16C. Makes it real tight. Nice. Pretty cool. Throw a little EQ on there and get it out of the way of like our sub bass and stuff. And our kick. The live bass is more of like a low mid string noise attitude kind of sound. We're not really relying on it for the sub for this track. Sweet. Get most of the low out of there, like. It's got a nice little bite to it. And then, we could always go in, take some of the notes out, maybe for the majority of the track, or the beginning at least, we'll have just a dun-dun-dun.
Make sure it's still recording.
Probably eat something. Hungry?
This little thing I was snacking on in my pocket.
Little MRE.
Can you take a break?
Yeah.
Very good in there.
Take a bite. It smells good. Give you some power.
Nice. Good. It's definitely like the Zente style Cliff Bar.
You want me to continue recording?
You have to. I think it's a good session for others, at least to like observe, take notes from.
Mm-hmm.
I think the flow is gonna be like the word flow is gonna be what people are gonna most get from it, you know? Psychology behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice. That's cool. No. Cool beat for sure.